Bill, she was talking to some, now she's a Bob. What did I do with my agenda here?
There you go. Good morning. I realized this like.
We are live. Oh, goodness.
Right. I forgot.
That's it. Okay. Good morning, Thursday, March 20th here, 2025, Thursday. Is it Thursday already? Wow. We are continuing with our review of all the bills on the board and giving our presenters, the sponsors of the bills, a chance to present. I'd like to welcome up Casey Toof for his presentation on H111, and thank you for joining us this morning. And so the floor is all yours to present and tell us why H111, what our problem is and what we want to solve, and why our committee should take it up. So welcome.
Problem, why you want to solve it. For the record, Representative Casey Toof, I represent St. Albans Town and St. Albans City. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate you taking the time. This is Bill H111. This is going to waive, the proposal is to waive registration fee for volunteer firefighters, personal motor vehicle, when the volunteer firefighter has the written authorization to use the motor vehicle for emergency. Where this came about, I was actually at a hockey practice, and my kids coach, they usually are like, what are you guys doing down in Montpelier? And they like to make me feel like I'm not doing my job. And so they try to give me all the solutions. But anyway, he's a volunteer firefighter, and he wanted to, he was very upset. This is a couple years ago. He was very upset with the DMV fee increase. And he said, well, in some states, I forget which state he mentioned, they actually exempt, it might have been Massachusetts or Virginia or something, or he's lived in both of those states. So he said they exempt them if you're a volunteer firefighter. And so that you wouldn't have to pay the registration fee if you could prove you put in the time as a volunteer firefighter, you get authorized, and then you could waive the fee. So I said, well, let me see what I can do. I can put a bill together for you. And so I put this in last year. I put it in again this year. And for me, it's a really big thing. I'm not a volunteer firefighter, but I have a lot of respect for first responders. A little bit, I told the story the last time I presented this. I think it's a really important story and why it means a lot to me. I have a pretty noticeable scar on my face. I don't know if you guys can see it, but about 21 years ago, I was involved in a pretty intense car wreck. My brother and I were on the road. He ran into a tree, and I had fractured my skull, shattered my eye socket, broke my nose, broke 4 ribs, collapsed my right lung, broke my neck, broke my pelvis in 2 spots, and broke my lower back. I don't remember the accident. I don't remember anything about it. The important thing to remember is 5:55 in the morning, and these first responders showed up, and they got me out of the car. Actually, they had to chase me down. I had run away, and they had to tackle me and pull me down, and they actually saved my life by doing so. They got me into an ambulance, and I was in a coma for 3 days. We had to be resuscitated on the way to the hospital. It was pretty traumatic experience for me and my family. I'm so thankful for the firefighters and the first responders that did show up, and their actions and their timeliness saved my life. And I wouldn't be here today without their quick and knowledgeable. And so I don't give back I'm not a volunteer. I volunteer in other ways. I coach and do other things like that. So I think for me to show the respect back to them is to introduce a bill for them, because I feel like they do a lot of things. There was they didn't expect me to call them and thank them. They just showed up. Like I said, 5:55 on a Sunday, they showed up and saved my life, and went back and did whatever they did on their Sunday. But without them, I wouldn't, be here today. My kids wouldn't obviously be here today. And so I think this is why I'm trying to show some support for the work they do, because they do this time and time again, and they don't ask for thanks. They don't care who you are. So that's kind of why I wanted to present that. And I really do appreciate you taking the time today. If anyone has any questions I spoke more than what it would take you to read this thing. So
Well, we want to know
no,
why.
that's good. Yeah.
Representative Wells has a question.
More of a comment. My brother Randy was a fire chief in Irisburg for 20 years, and as little as those guys get paid, if we give them any kind of break, all for it.
And I think that's one of the things is they use their own vehicles too. They don't show up in their, in any kind of vehicle. They show up with their truck or car that they have in their driveway, and they come in and they don't care. They're always on, well, not always, but they seem to, every time I'm with a volunteer, you can hear their radio going. So it seems like they're always on call, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
Representative Pouch.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up. I know in Heinsberg, I think our volunteers are given minimum wage, the state minimum wage when they respond. But that's it. About how many vehicles would this be? Do you have any?
I didn't do a full JFO thing on it. I just did the bill. It could be a lot. We could, if you dove into it, you could actually set tighter parameters, like you have to go to so many calls, or, because there are people, they show up every once in a while, but there are people that are dedicated. So I wouldn't know that. I'm sure we could find that if you dove into it. I understand that we're late in session, but.
Thank you for this. And I am in full support of volunteer firefighters. They do so much work with so little to no compensation. And so I don't know what is the normal treatment for volunteer firefighters? Do they, Representative Pouch mentioned that they get minimum wage on certain calls.
Depends on where you.
Depends on the municipality.
Do you have a sense of, are there any benefits that volunteer firefighters are receiving now?
I don't know that answer. I wouldn't say there's too much. I know they have training and they have, it seems like it's a really good social club too for a lot of people when they go there.
Yeah.
Very dedicated, but have a nice community. But I don't know that answer. That's a good question.
I think it varies from town to town, depending on how big the town is, and we offer them benefits and.
But I think I understand
Per call.
Yeah.
We go on a call, we see certain amount.
just understanding maybe how much revenue that would take away, because that's a concern of ours.
Mhm.
As we see our revenue decline.
Yeah.
But, so weighing that against rewarding people who are doing really good things
And-
for monsters.
I do appreciate the tight budget constraints under the transportation committee and transportation, the state of Vermont. I know, Ed Fund takes a little bit of that money away, and I say a little bit, it's a little bit to the Ed Fund, but it's a lot of it. A lot of it.
They
Transportation.
call that money.
So I understand that.
Education,
$50
is a
counts.
little. And transportation, it's earth changing here. Sorry. I'm sure Representative Casey has a comment or a question.
Do you have any idea how much that might cost?
No, I don't. Like I said, I didn't have anything with JFO. Cause I really didn't want to, I know we had a lot of other initiatives we're gonna
Oh,
face this year, and so putting them to work on a bill that I'm not sure will move, so.
It sounds like a good idea in theory. I just, I don't know how much it is, and one other question is, was your brother all right?
My brother was all right. He had a fractured skull, broken lower back, 6 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. But his biggest thing was he had a lacerated liver.
Yeah, wow.
So I had all the broken bones and all that stuff. He was dealing with bleeding and stuff, but he's perfectly fine. He's yeah, he's doing great. Yeah.
You guys in a hurry to go to church?
No, we were in a church. My oldest brother was graduating college that day, and we were in a hurry to get to home to get ready to go to Linden, to go to his graduation party
Yeah.
or graduation and all that. So
You should have
just
said,
fellas-
you're in a hurry to go to church.
yes. Well, he is now. My older brother, my brother who's in the accident with me, he goes to church every Sunday.
Yeah, I'd be definitely.
Carolyn Brannigan,
Doing an
actually.
accent like that, I'd be definitely thankful, that's for sure.
And I don't know if you know Ben.
I think I know him. Maybe I know.
He's in Fairfield.
Well, glad you're here.
Yeah, I am too. I appreciate that.
Anybody have any other, Representative Powell?
So, I think if we wanted to look at it, we'd have to get JFO to look at the numbers. But I did, we have at least about 25 active people in Heinsberg.
Mhm.
Our population's about 5,000, that percentage, put it against Vermont's, thing, and, I'd say it's probably maybe in the 3,000 or maybe more.
Right.
Number of hospitals, just to give a scale in there. You got Burlington are paid mostly. I don't know if they have any volunteers. So some of the big cities have some paid staff.
Well, player pay.
Brattleboro has paid,
Yeah.
Yeah,
paid department.
We have like in St. Albans, we have St. Albans cities paid, but the St. Albans town is volunteer.
yes, yeah.
Does, I didn't mean to cut in front of you, but does that include professional firefighters too? Or?
No, this is just for volunteer.
Okay.
And it's for the vehicle that they would take
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I see it happening in our town. Yeah. I like that.
Okay. Representative Tuke, thank you very much for coming in and pitching your bill to us, and
I mean, I can wait. If you want to vote on it right now, I can. No, I really appreciate you taking it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Donuts.
That's the deal.
It's closed right now. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Good job.
No problem.
Take care of that
Thank you.
your time. I could have made a comment about when, some people bring donuts when they come to present a bill.
We don't need donuts. We had them yesterday.
We did have them yesterday.
It's double. No.
Well, we're gonna move into I think we're right.
Partied a little too hardy yesterday.
I think that my personal opinion, Representative McCoy, is that Vice Chair Corcoran is sending me a message about not doing to him what I did to him yesterday by letting him know 5 minutes before that he was handling the morning. So he returned the favor with a text 5 minutes before 9 saying, you better be there this morning because I'm not going to be. I think it's payback. That's what I think is going on. No,
Has he partied a little too hardy?
I have no idea. Today should be a national holiday, but that's beside the point. So we'll move on to our next bill.
Why? Is there a birthday?
This is part of the it's the first day of March Madness.
And Representative Lally knew that too.
Please join us.
I was able to change the name for the men's to off the rails, but when I got to the women's, it didn't let me. It just like when I submitted it, that other piece to Netflix the name.
So
It's
just
just-
transportation. Oh, Pat, it's under you.
The
Okay.
women's.
Ashley's handling that, right?
I'm gonna talk to her. Change this.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning. How are
So
you?
we're going through the bills that are on our wall and we want an opportunity to hear from you, your best case as to why you think we should take this up in the second half of the year here in the miscellaneous motor vehicle or some other avenue. And so we want to hear, the floor is yours.
Yeah, for the record, Representative Ray Garofano, I represent Essex and Essex Junction, and want to mention that today is also Persian New Year, first day of spring.
Oh, yes.
Which you'll hear more about on the floor today. Yeah. So there's many things to celebrate today, in addition to March Madness. Thank you to the committee for allowing me to present H 187, an act requiring the use of personal flotation devices during cold weather. In 2020, Safe Kids Vermont and the Vermont Child Fatality Review Team created the Vermont Water Safety Action Committee. The Coalition of Safe Kids Vermont, UVM Children's Hospital, the Vermont Department of Health, YMCA, and the Live Like Benjo Foundation. The committee was created to mitigate the risks impacting Vermont youth and families by identifying and addressing gaps in resources, education, and opportunity. In 2022, the Vermont Water Safety Action Committee released a report with recommendations to improve water safety in Vermont. The report has been posted to your committee's website. The report notes that compared to surrounding states, Vermont lacks statewide water safety regulation and guidance. Most water laws in Vermont relate to boat safety, such as safety course requirements and personal flotation devices on board for each occupant. Only children under the age of 13 are required to wear a life jacket when boats are underway, and there are no cold weather life jacket laws currently in Vermont. The Vermont Water Safety Action Committee proposed H 187 with collaboration from the Vermont State Police Marine Division and the Vermont Department of Health and various aquatic professionals. You may be asking, why do we need this? Why do we need a cold weather life jacket law? Submersion in cold water can cause the body to go into shock and minimize the time and ability for someone to self-rescue. New York has a great brochure that details the risks of cold water immersion. This brochure has also been posted on the committee's webpage. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, shock and sudden loss of body temperature pose a drowning hazard within minutes, even to a seasoned athlete. Without proper safety equipment, an individual can lose dexterity in arms and legs in as little as 15 minutes. Without the help of a life jacket, this will make it difficult to stay afloat. Cold weather life jacket laws protect individuals from the risk of cold water immersion from fall to late spring. It is important to note that even on a string of warm days in the spring, the lake temperature in Vermont can be in the mid-40s. H 187 is a simple bill. It requires all individuals on boats, no matter their age, to wear a life jacket during the highest risk times of the year, November 1st through May 1st. The goal is to reduce drowning from boats and other aquatic activities in fall and spring by ensuring people have more time to self-rescue or to be rescued. It's a small ask with a significant potential to save lives. Unfortunately, we have experienced tragedies related to cold water incidents in Vermont. In 2021, a Charlotte couple died of cold water immersion drowning. The water temperature in Lewis Creek on that day, which was April 19th, was just over freezing at 35 degrees. In 2022, 2 Massachusetts men drowned in Seymour Lake as a result of cold water immersion. State police investigators determined the men set out in a single kayak from a protected cove where the conditions on the open lake were not apparent and worsened while they were on the water. The water's cold temperature was a contributing factor in this tragic incident. And in 2024, Vermont State Police trooper saved a man after his canoe capsized on Holland Pond. This incident could have had a tragic ending if state police had not responded as quickly as they did. We hope that the passage of this law will also raise awareness in the community that it is important for all individuals to wear life jackets on boats, especially those boating with children. I'll share a personal story that might resonate with committee members. In 2021, on a warm spring day in April, my daughter and I took a hike around Indian Brook Reservoir in Essex. My daughter has been a competitive swimmer since the age 5 and asked if she could bring her suit and go for a swim. The air temperatures that day were near 80 degrees, and I agreed. After our hike, she ran to the swimming area and dove headfirst in the deep section of the reservoir. Seconds later, she popped up and struggled to pull herself up on the rocks, breathing very fast and shaking and crying. I ran to her, and after she caught her breath, she explained that the water was freezing and it shocked her when she was deep in the water, and she wasn't sure how to react. We were lucky that she acted quickly, and in a sense, it was good that she dove in deep and quickly realized how cold the water was. If she had spent a few more minutes in the water, shock may have prevented her from reacting. Again, this is a straightforward bill with the potential to save lives and educate Vermonters about the risks of cold water immersion.
We have questions? Representative Cole?
Does New York have a law?
They do.
They do, yes.
I think New Hampshire and Vermont are the only states and the New England area that do not have.
Thank you.
Representative Burke?
Yeah, there's some compelling stories. And I just reminded myself that my husband and I went out on a pond, lake in November, and we were the only people out there. And I mean, we did have life jackets on, but afterwards we said, this probably was not a good idea. It was a little bit rough. That if our kids knew we were out here, they probably. So, it's sobering because I think a lot of times we don't take seriously the threats that weather can pose, even in good weather.
Or you don't know, like, I didn't know. I mean, I thought when this happened in my case, I was like, oh my God, what's this say about my parenting? I was like, sure, jump in, no problem. And I mean, the reservoir had been frozen like weeks before, just didn't think about it. It was a warm day. You know, and I think that's usually the case. People aren't really aware that what the water temperature. So what this would do is just kind of build in that protection where you don't have to think about it, but also go a long way in educating people, because people would say, well, why do I need to wear this? Well, guess what? Your dexterity, you lose it. I mean, for my daughter, who seriously, I mean, she is such a strong swimmer. She said she could not move her legs.
So just one more question. So this does not include summer months?
No, this
So
is
you-
just for the, November 1st through May 1st.
Okay.
Where the risk is
Great,
highest.
thank you. I think this is a good idea.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention. I live, right by Shelburne Bay, and the La Platte River connects, and people are out at the second the ice is gone. People are out, it's like one to the next to, they're in kayaks and canoes, and increasingly these days on the SUPs. And I noticed some of them are not wearing life jackets, and particularly as the season gets underway and the temperatures get colder, I have seen people with babies, infants strapped to them and on SUPs before May, out there. And it's very concerning, and we sail, and I am aware that the Coast Guard is very concerned about this. So this would be a very interesting thing to look more into, I think.
Thank you, Representative Lally. And just to drive that point, this, as I mentioned in my introduction, this bill is supported by the Vermont Health Department and, the collaboration that has gone into kind of highlighting this as a risk and something simple we can do to really have the potential to save a lot of lives and educate folks. I think it's important.
Representative Wells?
I think that's a great idea. We used to put our boat in early on Maycon. I've had 3 or 4 boats, and we were in there in April, and you were out of there in October some years. And you do ignore the weather because you've been in good weather the whole season.
Yeah.
And so that just sounds like a smart common sense idea. Yeah.
Representative White?
In this, I am in full agreement with you.
First one.
I don't see any agreement to the meeting. I don't see any downside to this bill. The one thing I would say is, in order for it to be effective, I would think that there would need to be some resources put behind a public service campaign to just make people aware. It's putting a rule on the books. We need to get it out there to the public, but
I think the brochure from New York is a great example. I provided a sample, the copy that's on your webpage. And I think the health department would be happy to come in and talk about what they have, what infrastructure they have in place. I don't know what, as far as financial resources might be needed. I haven't looked into that far, but I'm hopeful that they may have within their current resources have some funding where it wouldn't need a huge appropriation of funding.
Representative Burke, was that your hand earlier or not? Did I miss that? Okay, sorry.
Pardon me?
I thought you had your hand up earlier.
No.
Sorry. Representative Casey?
Is there a boat size?
I'm not sure. I don't actually have a copy of this, so I'll have to look at the bill.
If I'm going across Lake Champlain in a ferry
Mhm.
in my vehicle, do I have to bring a life vest in my car?
Good question.
And then who's going to enforce it?
Another good question.
Because
I think, if
I
you
go out
want-
trolling. I'm sorry, not to interrupt.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, I was gonna say, hopefully you guys will take this up and get experts in the room to be able to answer those specific questions.
When we go trolling, sometimes in the early spring, I don't see law enforcement out there very much. Maybe if you're in a dense area where there's fish, and guys keep going back through trolling and stuff. We all have to have life preservers in the boat,
Sure.
one for each person. So I just, I can't imagine the fishermen and the duck hunters. I think they wear something anyways, but You know,
Thank you
it's-
for that. And I think, for me personally, this is more about education than enforcement.
Yeah,
That, if the law is on the books and we pass it, then the health department would engage in a campaign to educate the public, just to kind of let people like me know, don't let your daughter, your 12-year-old jump in the freezing cold water.
right.
And if you are gonna be on a, vessel on the water during these cold months, that there are risks that you can protect yourself very easily. So I don't think it's more about I think it's more about education and getting
Right.
folks to understand that this is something simple they can do to prevent injury and possible death.
If I got a big, huge boat, I don't, say I had a 40-foot boat. And with that, I mean, I think there should be some sort of a size
Yeah, and I think
factor
those are
involved.
details
I
you all
mean,
can work
Because it
through.
could really be broad and it's like, hey, you come across the ferry, but you gotta wear this life preserver. But I'm all done.
Oh, you're fine. It's your floor. If you're all set. There was another hand. Did I miss over here? I'm sorry.
I mean, I am not a boater, so I don't, my assumption is when you're on a boat, you have a personal flotation device for everyone that's in the boat.
Yeah,
I do. Mhm.
Okay, so I think this is just if you're in a boat in spring, you're still gonna follow those same rules. That's my understanding.
Wow.
And I'm not quite sure about a ferry. Because ferries will have personal flotation devices on them, like the Fort Ty ferry.
Yeah.
They have them right
Yeah.
there. And I mean, you could say, you're on them.
As much as I definitely will try to keep from doing this. I can't help it. There is the last provision in the piece says that commercial vehicles that have been inspected by the Coast Guard, et cetera, are all exempt in your bill. It does say that. So the ferries are covered and the commercial vehicles, and any cruise boats, et cetera, that are already governed by the
Right.
Coast Guard are exempt from it. But I do understand that you're saying, or maybe would be part of the details we work out, is whether or not you actually have to wear it
Yeah.
versus.
This requires wearing.
And that is a different than what,
During those months.
that is different than what exists now. They have to have them already. That is not, this is a step above that.
Yeah,
in
and
terms
as
of-
I
They
mentioned,
have to be there already. And
Vermont is an outlier in New England in not having this law. I think Vermont and New Hampshire are the only states that don't have anything in statute that governs that. And like I said, I think it's something, we require it for kids under 13 on boats. But this would go a step further. But the potential for something simple to do, the potential to save lives, as demonstrated in the stories that I shared, is really great. So
Representative White?
I see the change and I think it's significant to require people to wear the life jacket in winter, because it's different. If you're on a stand-up paddleboard, for example, having one on the paddleboard versus wearing one, I think that makes a significant difference. But the other thing I wanted to point out is your personal story didn't involve a boat, right? So
Right.
I don't know whether that argues to broaden it somewhat. I mean, I do think a public service campaign about boating could inform a situation like yours, but maybe there's some broader language to include situations like that.
If it were decided to take it further, or one of the members if we wanted to take it up further, we would definitely have to dig into those details. So for this purpose, for the morning, that our 15 and our concept is covered. If yours is real quick, we can hit it.
Is there dates? Is there certain dates?
November 1st through May 1st is
Okay.
when it would be required, only when it is the most dangerous.
Ice fishermen.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's flotation devices for ice fishermen?
Not part of my bill.
Okay.
Representative Garofano, thank you very much.
Thank you
for bringing us
so
this
much
morning,
for the
and,
opportunity. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You gotta go this way. Well, Representative Pouch or Representative Burke, or if either one of you is gonna take the lead, or one of you is gonna. Thank you, Representative Garofano.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome, Representative Burke.
Nice to see her.
Commute.
Your committee, thank you.
Commute wasn't too long for you to get here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Make it to the chair.
For the record, Representative Molly Burke of Brattleboro, and I'm here to present on H 284. H 284, in simplicity, requires a vision screening for the people renewing their license, starting with the age of 70. And the other thing that it requires is a special permit for driving an RV, for an endorsement for an RV of between 10,000 and 26,000 pounds, and then a CDL for people driving an RV over that weight. I just want to tell you why I'm presenting this bill. A Brattleboro resident, not an actual constituent, but close enough, he was on his bicycle on Route 9, which is state highway, the class 1 town highway, part of the state highway. And he was hit by a motorhome while riding his bicycle near the Brattleboro Farmers Market, resulted in a fracture to his left clavicle and short memory lapse. Clavicle appeared to be healing 2 months later when I slipped and ruptured my left biceps tendon because it had been weakened by 2 months of immobilization. And that was surgically repaired. This person just incidentally is a doctor. The driver of the motorhome was 80 years old. When I called him to get his insurance information, he told me he could not read his insurance information. I called back and spoke with his daughter. He was driving an uninsured vehicle out of state. He was issued a $400 ticket for failure to give adequate space to a vulnerable user. And my constituent contacted the police department, informing them of his insurance status and requesting that he be held accountable, but he's not been cited. So my constituent did a lot of research about this issue with vision and license for RVs. And he is recommending mandatory vision screening upon renewal of driver's license for elderly drivers. All states in the Northeast require this except Vermont and Connecticut, with either 65 years old or 75 being the threshold. I just sort of chose 70 as a midpoint. And then requiring special permits or CDL required for operating oversized RVs. And there's a list of states that have this requirement. So I put this bill in and, didn't think too much about it. And I got an email from a colleague who was sent to me and to Representative Pouch. And Representative Pouch, thank you very much for co-sponsoring this bill as a bicyclist. I know you're very concerned about road safety. And our colleague said, I want to thank you for introducing H 284. On October 26, 2020, my oldest sister was taking her daily lunch walk when she was hit and killed by an 82-year-old driver while she was in a high visibility sidewalk designed to be safe for a blind person who lived nearby. During the discovery process, they learned the driver had ocular dementia that affected both her vision and her ability to process what she was seeing. Her doctor had left it up to her to decide when her condition was bad enough that she could no longer safely drive. If this bill had been in place back then, my sister would be alive, and my family, especially her daughter, who was only 7 at the time, would not still be haunted by her absence this day. So that really sort of, made this a little bit more like, wow, this is pretty serious. So that's basically what the bill does. I'm just trying to think. New York in the Northeast, requirements for vision screening. New York screens for all ages, which is interesting, as does New Hampshire. Maine screens for age 65, Massachusetts age 75, Rhode Island 75 and older, Connecticut and Vermont no screening. And my constituent discussed this with his optometrist, who said age-related eye problems that would affect driving, such as cataracts, glaucoma, and macular degeneration, start becoming an issue at the age of 60. There's no definitive medical answer to what age would be best to start screening, though it does seem a minority of 80-year-olds have sufficient vision to pass a driver's exam, and strongly suggested screening at some age would be helpful in identifying at-risk drivers and in preventing accidents. And we did have a bill in 2022 on the wall, and that didn't really go anywhere. And so this obviously gets into issues of how do you screen? Do you screen by having a statement from an optometrist? You have to have DNB do the screening, et cetera. So that's the bill. And that's the reason for the bill.
Representative Case?
Now, so if the eye screening thing had been intact, possibly your friend wouldn't have got hit by the RV, right? I mean, I don't know how many
Possibly.
RVs. I don't mind the eye screening thing. I just see the RV thing kind of seems like maybe if his vision was better, maybe that might not have happened. So it's like, I don't know, I wouldn't.
Yeah, well,
That's-
I think
that's-
one of them is, there's like, there'd be steps, like there's be an endorsement, special endorsement, like you need an endorsement for a motorcycle, right? Yeah, and then there's the CDL, which is definitely a bigger step and a bigger issue and expensive and all that. So this is just a proposal. If we were to take it up, we would get testimony on what the risk would be of somebody driving an RV. I mean, it is a big vehicle. And somebody I was talking to said that he rented, went camping and rented RVs, and how would that affect? I don't know how they do that now in states that do have regulations, but how would you deal with that? I don't know. There are a lot of unanswered questions, of course.
It seems like we're going to be penalizing our residents here that have RVs and want to go because it sounds like to me like somebody could come in from out of state, from a state that doesn't have CDLs and stuff. I don't know. It seems like to me here we go putting a little disadvantage to our residents here that, I don't know. It seems kind of unfair, but
Well,
the eye thing,
Yeah.
I think that's a good
Okay.
idea. Sounds like if the person had good set of eyeballs, maybe your friend wouldn't have got hit, which is unfortunate, but.
There are states that do require special permits.
Right, and so we'll be lucky if they're the ones that drive up here, but what about the ones that don't have those?
Yep.
That's all.
Well,
I said no.
Okay,
Those questions is exactly what, to a level of review, because we're not necessarily taking it up or not. So your questions are legit. We're just not going to go into every
No,
detail. So we get it. We're
Sorry.
good. No,
I can read off.
you're totally, you're fine, in that respect. But once it goes beyond sort of the general view, if we were going to dig into the bill, which we may or may not, then all of that will go to the testimony that we get. Representative Keiser, you're up next.
Yeah, thanks. Molly, this is Representative Burke, that wonderful idea. With eye testing and such things like that. I often wondered how the heck some of these people got on the road. And so doesn't it speak to a larger thing? Because I noticed it was just one test after 70. Is that right? It's proposed here.
Yeah, that's a
So
proposal.
anyway, I've almost would think that we might, and I know this opens up a whole can of worms, but maybe test every 5 years after that, because to your point, Representative Casey, people degrade over time.
Well, it could be, it might say on renewal.
On renewal.
So you have to have your
So it would be-
license renewed, yeah.
Okay,
You're in there in-
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that-
So I think that's,
that would be-
that's the thing.
that-
yeah.
I know it's hard, but then
Yeah.
as it goes.
I just remember
Sit down next to her.
parents and others that were smart enough to know that they couldn't drive, and
Yeah.
others that weren't.
Yeah.
And that always, there's hazard on the road. Thank you.
We're at Representative Wells and then Representative Pouch and then Representative White if we get to them all.
I like that idea of getting, I don't know what the age, what it should be. 70 sounds a little young, but 75 or 80 or whatever, when they got to start doing it. But if they're in there anyway, it makes sense. They can get that done. And there's a lot of bad drivers out there. There's Peter O'Toole, a local musician in our area. He's 90. About a year ago, he crashed into the side of my wife's Community National Bank in Martin because he said he didn't see the stop sign. And of course, it was like 6 feet wide. And he crashed into the side of the bank. Now, it's funny, nobody got hurt. I'll put a hole in the wall. But if somebody's walking around outside the lobby, they get nailed. The CDLs is different. The Class A's, I get an RV.
Okay,
And the Class A's are required, a CDL. the big ones. I've got a pole on and it makes me laugh because I have trouble. It's like 40 feet long. I can't back it up. I have to have my wife back it up because I can't get it into those corners. Chris could probably do that all day long. I can't working with mirrors, but you're not required. But I try to never back it up. I'll drive it from here to Nashville. She'll have to come back into the spot. So that's a tougher one. The CDL costs $3,500, I believe. Casey would know that. Representative Ketchum would know that. And so you got to go through a lot. But the Class A's are required to have a CDL. Smaller ones, no.
Well, this is like between, the proposal here is between 10,000 and 26,000 pounds, just an endorsement.
Right.
And then over 26.
And even the small ones.
But is it over 26, is that considered?
Yeah, that's a CDL.
That's, yeah.
That's correct. I was just gonna say mine's, I think, 15,000 pounds. So even the little ones are pretty big.
If we take it up, we will definitely dig into every level of detail. Our goal here is to get the concept of it and the walkthrough so that we know whether or not we want to take further.
Yeah.
We're not going to solve it today for sure, but that points out there's always all kinds of details. I think Representative Pouch was next and then Representative.
So I, thought that this is well looking into. I was hit by an RV, somebody driving it who, in the end, really didn't know what the heck they were doing. And I woke up in the hospital. So I think there's something there. And, I personally wouldn't want to jump into a large vehicle like this without like a little bit of practice or something. And we're not talking about trailered motorhomes. These are just ones you would drive. You were going to mention, Molly, which other states have some regulatory guidelines, I guess, or
Regarding the CDL, or regarding the special permit, states that require special permits include Arkansas, Connecticut, and I can tell you what pound, Hawaii, Kansas, New Mexico, Washington, DC, Wisconsin, and states that require a non-commercial special driver's license. That would be California, Maryland, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, New York, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Texas, Wyoming.
Okay, we're at our, if you have real quick, you're up. Let's.
Thank you. So my question, Representative Burke, you cited Massachusetts and some other states in terms of having required eye exams at certain ages. Are any of those states doing more than just requiring an eye exam at, for older drivers, like another driver's test? And I ask that because it sounds like one of your incidents may have been eye, but it might have also been some dementia. And I've heard other.
It was ocular induced dementia.
Okay.
So let's say if I can read that again. That is, somewhere.
You mean ocular degeneration? Maybe that's the word.
Ocular dementia
Okay, all right.
that affected her vision and the ability to process what you're seeing. So,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Representative Burt, thank you very much for presenting your concept, and Representative Pouch is a.
Thank you very much for having me and for good questions.
You'll be involved in the conversation that helps decide which ones we may or may not take up. So thank you very much. As the hit parade continues, Representative Chris Taylor, please join us in the witness seat to present your bill that you have proposed. Welcome this morning. Thank you.
Introduction marathon. Thank you. For the record, Chris Taylor, represent Milton and Georgia. A little bit of historical background on this bill. This bill has been introduced many, many times. When I came on board down here, I kind of picked up the reins on it, but apparently historical knowledge on it is that at some point it did pass through the House and got hung up in the Senate. So there has in the past been some definite agreement that this bill should be put through. Anyway, thank you, committee, for the opportunity to speak today in support of H-282, a bill that seeks to provide Vermont's home study students with equitable access to driver education and training. Vermont law requires young drivers to complete an approved driver education course before obtaining a junior's operator's license. However, home study students currently face significant barriers to fulfilling this requirement. While public and independent school students can access driver education programs through their schools, home study families often struggle to find suitable options. Some must turn to costly private courses, while others find that available programs are full or located far from home. This lack of accessibility puts home study students at a disadvantage compared to their peers. H282 addresses this gap by directing the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles and the Secretary of Education to approve one or more driver education programs for home study students. The bill ensures that these programs will meet the same instructional standards as traditional courses, including education on the effects of alcohol and drugs, motor vehicle insurance requirements, and environmental impacts. Crucially, it allows parents or guardians who meet certain safety criteria to deliver the approved curriculum and behind-the-wheel instruction, expanding access while maintaining oversight. A number of established online programs already provide comprehensive driver education, including offerings from the National Highway Safety Administration and various other virtual courses. By formally recognizing such an option, Vermont can ensure home study students receive quality instruction while reducing logistical and financial burdens on families. H282 is about fairness and opportunity. Vermont's home study students deserve the same path to safe and responsible driving as their peers in public and independent schools. I urge the committee to support this bill and help create a more inclusive driver education system for all Vermont students. Thank you. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer them.
Representative Burke?
Yeah, this is interesting because I know that there are people in our high school who are having a hard time getting into driver education classes.
Right.
So that's also been an issue. So
And that,
how do we expand opportunity, in that way too?
with that, hopefully something like this could eliminate that because home study students can access it through a public school.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they're at the back of the list.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So alleviating them from accessing it in the public schools could open up those spots for other public school students. So that could help with that.
Representative Boucher, your hands up.
Yeah, it was, I'll say, it, my kids, it took them a while and they were in public school.
Mhm.
So it would be, if we would take this up, look into, whether allow all students to, go through, assuming it's a rigorous thing. I'll just point out, I never had driver's education. So, it's not that everyone would know it's not. Obviously, and driving all cars with
Okay.
I'm sorry, are you all set?
Yeah, I'm also.
Representative White, rescue us.
I just want to echo what Representative Burke said, that in our district as well, I have two children. One got into the driver's ed class in public school and it was a class and we didn't have to pay extra. The other one didn't because it didn't get on the list soon enough and we had to pay a private instructor. So I really like the idea of an online course or, a parent doing home study to be able to take a child through the course.
Right.
And then they still have to go to the DMV and have their
Absolutely.
exam. And I do believe that boating safety courses are available online. And so I like that idea, not just for homeschool students, but for all students, because there is some, whether it's equity or just, there are not enough spots for students to take driver's ed right now.
And on, initial view, obviously with this work, you never can tell everything that's going to pop up, but it doesn't look like a very hard lift because of the programs that are already available online. So.
Cool. Representative Lally hasn't spoken yet this morning.
Yeah, I think that with AI and stuff and online training, we have this fabulous new DMV website. There's some real interesting opportunities to make a lot of things more accessible and easier. And then, we're also have been working hard to make conditions safer for cyclists and other users on the road, which now include people on e-bikes who might not be, maybe as sort of new to cycling in some ways. And this seems like potentially a great opportunity to introduce brand new drivers to kind of the world of the future. You know, we're going to be seeing more of this. And honestly, I think with folks having vision related issues like we were just talking about, that they may, they still need to get around. They may switch to some kind of a micro mobility device rather than like, you know, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but just there seems like there's some opportunities to just raise more awareness of all the different users that somebody's likely to encounter on our roads. And, you know, to do so at an early age seems like you'd be kind of inoculating them with a really, you know, great set of habits and practices from the get-go.
You started with homeschooled, Chris, getting left out here. How many homeschooled kids are there out of 100? Do you have a percentage on that? Is that a lot now these days?
It's held fairly steady. I wish I had the numbers in front of me because I do have them. I just don't want to speak out of turn. Obviously during the COVID, it spiked, but it's kind of come back and leveled off. It's a pretty level amount of students that participate in home study with some increase over the years. But it's not a huge amount of students, but it's a tight-knit group that really cares about the ability to have home study.
Even ballpark, are we talking 1,000, 10,000, or 100?
10%.
I've heard it
5%?
quoted at about 8,000.
5%.
Okay.
Yeah,
You don't have
I
to.
think it's actually less than that, but yeah, it's
Thank you.
The student, we had, Chris.
We had some hands.
400.
10,000?
10%. 10%.
I think there was some other, was there any hands up or not, or were you all set?
I was just concluding,
Keep going,
asking.
keep going.
I can keep
Or
going.
was it,
now.
oh, you can keep going if you want.
Well,
to.
I was just, he was
Who else?
clarifying how many, I was looking for a percentage. There's 85,000 students in the state of Vermont. He said there's 8,000, so 10% are homeschooled.
Have to be 10%.
Yep.
If that's-
That sounds, to me, it sounds a little high, but
I trust Chris on that.
That's a perfect answer.
Both of you.
Other questions? Representative Casey, and then, sorry.
I think the intentions of it are great. Sounds like a good idea.
Representative Burke?
I just wanted to invoke our former member, Dave Potter, who was a Jarvis instructor. Has something to say about this, I'm sure.
yeah.
I'm not sure if it was for that or not. Forget.
Yeah, you know, and that is something that I consider too. You know, how would a driver's education teacher in public school right now feel about this?
Okay. Anybody? Any other questions? Representative Taylor, thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
You too.
Let's see. We've got a couple of minutes. The online list and probably the paper list at the beginning of the week might have changed due to different people's meetings and commitments.
See.
You're gonna have to check the most recent one up online. If it's changed a little bit, some people had to reschedule, had different meetings, whatnot. So there is updated online. We would be expecting Representative Noyes as our next one. I will use the spot while we have a couple of minutes, to make sure the committee is informed officially, I guess, or knows that our bill left here and the sign was H488, and it was then brought on the floor and assigned to Ways and Means. And yesterday, Ways and Means passed it out 10-01, and they will come back to the floor today, and the speaker will assign it to appropriations, and then it will go on to their schedule. And I would not expect as fast a turnaround out of appropriations as we did out of Ways and Means. Representative Canfield will be reporting for Ways and Means committee, and then we'll find out. I would dare guess that Representative Kasenska will probably do the report out of appropriations. He's been our liaison between transportation and appropriation, but that will be determined by the chair. But so today is Thursday. It'll go down there. Now, we'll lean this way and say who's got more experience of how it comes through, but we're looking at midweek next week at the earliest.
Yeah, and the approach is, you know, they need to get their budget out by, they're gonna be here late Friday, so we're not gonna be on their radar until probably next Tuesday. I'm assuming that we'll go, or you'll go in Tuesday, I'm assuming the loader right out that day, goes on the notice calendar Wednesday, so probably Thursday. Potentially it could be Wednesday, like I doubt that they'll take it up tomorrow. They're just too busy. So they need to get their bill out. So,
For the areas that are preparing and
Yeah.
will be presenting, will be,
yeah,
you're looking at absolutely the earliest Wednesday, more likely Thursday, very possibly Friday.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, and can we go over exactly who's presenting, because it's not everybody.
we will do that in our next piece, our next,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
when we do have the next, well, before, we may not do it now, we may have to do that a little bit later, but Representative Noyes right on schedule. Actually, I mean, we do have another minute and we could do that. but
I was just wondering the names. I know Candace, myself, you're gonna.
I'm gonna start for sections 1 to 3.
All right.
Go ahead.
1 through 3 is Matt, 4 through 6 is Chris, 7 through 9 is Candace, 10 through 12 is you, Phil, and then Molly's bat and cleanup. 13 to 12.
Okay. And now it puts us right to, that was almost a perfect break and we're almost right to 10 o'clock. Representative Noyes, if you're ready, we're ready for you. We'll start a minute early. That will be unusual for a committee. So welcome this morning. And our goal is you got 15 minutes to present your concept and take a few questions and
Perfect.
the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Chair Walker. I appreciate the time of the committee. So we know that owning a car in Vermont is expensive. And in rural parts of our community, in order to get to work, kind of need a car. We don't have good access to fixed route transportation, especially in some of the more rural parts of our state. So I'm always thinking about how to own and operate a car safely in our state. Having had a long line of sobs in my history and working on them in the driveway to keep them going so I could get to work. I just kicked around different ideas over the years. This particular one is around looking at the cost of vehicle inspections and how we can maybe reduce some of the costs associated with that. You know, if we look at the ownership of a car, you've got registration fees, insurance, oil changes, tires, maintenance, kind of all adds up. So I was thinking, what if we were to kind of look at some concepts around different ways we could reduce the costs and thinking about safety, obviously tying it into inspections, something we have to do every year. So I just kind of put together a committee that possibly could look at it. I had been talking to Treasurer Pichek about this, and he was like, yeah, sounds like a good idea. So I put him in charge of it. And just to kind of bring together a group of people to kind of just flesh out some ideas about how we can reduce the costs of owning a vehicle in Vermont. In the past, I've proposed like having an AmeriCorps program at Vermont State University where they have an automotive technology where over the summer, maybe they could repair cars around the state as an AmeriCorps member at our technical and career centers as a way to get money for college through the Siegel AmeriCorps Award. You know, years ago, we had a community action garage that would help people with car repairs in order to get their vehicles inspected. I think that's gone, but maybe there's some concepts around that that could be explored. We do invest in, or at least in the past, we invested through like Mileage Smart, where we've tried to help people access efficient cars. It's not only important for them to have the car, to keep it running, and that kind of adds up. So, you know, the other concept I was thinking was even like, what does it look like to go every other year on inspection instead of every year as a way to kind of help take some of the costs down? So I put that in there as one of the things to look at. Obviously, we need money for our roads. So, you know, maybe we look at doubling, I think it's $6 that the DMV gets on an inspection sticker, $6 or $7, somewhere in there, make that 14 or 12, whatever. I don't know exactly what it is. So, you know, to keep the DMV whole. So that's kind of what I was thinking when I put this bill together is just like, how can we keep people with vehicles that are safe to have on the road and operate so they can get to work, so they can get to town, get their kids to where they need to go. Happy to take any questions.
Representative Wells is.
That's,
Started.
instead of, get an inspection every year, you were suggesting get an inspection every 2 years.
Sure.
I like it.
Okay.
And, that's just one of your concepts or one of your ideas you're
Yeah.
proposing. Yeah, that's a good one.
Representative Burke?
We had a bill in here, was it yesterday, around inspections? And I brought up the point, and it just a consideration, and this would get studied if you had your commission, that Vermont is an ozone transit zone, and we have certain air quality
Yes.
requirements. And we had get into this a lot when we had a lot of talk about the, when we went to the electronic inspections and around the issue of the onboard diagnostic system and the expensive of that. So we had a lot of conversations about that, and we had sort of waivers and different things going on, but we did need to deal with that issue.
Right,
From
and
the point of view of the EPA. Now, the EPA may not exist anymore.
good point. I also think that our participation in the Clean Air Act and being able to get those funds, being an ozone transition zone, is tied into population density, especially around Chittenden County. Other states don't have that in their rural parts of the state. And maybe that's a requirement in Chittenden County. And I know that there is definitely the availability of people to go back to the dealer if their car's within a certain age to get those emission systems repaired under warranty. I think they have an extended warranty on emissions in Vermont. So, you know, that would be something that could be recommended. You know, I know that one of our colleagues here in the building got a car and they wanted like $3,800 for a little sensor that dealer only that put the brakes on the car if you forgot to step on the brake if you were driving towards another car. You know, so it wouldn't pass inspection because the check engine light was on, and it was a sensor around automatic braking. It ended up being a ground wire, which was not having to buy the whole thing, although the first place that he went said he needed a new sensor. And the next place went and said, no, it's just a ground wire.
The people at A&R, you know, there's a quality people at A&R.
Yes.
Just so I get it, this bill really just says we bring a few different people together and just look at what the cost of owning personal vehicles. It's not any other transportation piece. It's the ownership of the vehicle, because obviously people need to own vehicles. And then what are the cost drivers, and are there things the state can do to reduce them? And at the same time, understanding how it might impact the transportation budget, I guess. So that's the concept.
Yeah.
And some of these things were just ideas, I guess,
Yeah.
potential ideas.
Are
Are there any others that we might not be thinking of?
Yep. So the Agency of Natural Resources runs a eco program through AmeriCorps where, you know, they engage people in service as a way to look for help. So maybe there's some cross sector between running an AmeriCorps through VTC with auto dealers so that they can, you know, have a pipeline to getting people to come work for them. So, you know, look at some of the partnerships around that as well.
Thank you.
Representative Allen?
Yeah, I could also see, you know, I'm thinking about the costs of transportation and how they disproportionately burden someone who lives in rural Ohio, for example. And, you know, and we're also struggling to, you know, encourage a transition to EV ownership, right? But there are barriers to making that happen. So I could see a study that looks at the cost drivers of personal vehicle ownership that's geographically based, because it's going to look very different in Chittenden, right? Than it is out in Woolcott. And what is the universe of those challenges, but also opportunities look like? Because we have an imperfect understanding of that, is my takeaway from this biennium. There are challenges with our utilities, the sort of pole to or transformer to meter. That needs some addressing. That's not standardized throughout the state. People don't know what to expect, so it makes it very unpredictable and creates, introduces barriers. And then just this, as we move to, not move to, like we're sort of already in the era of a light coming on and telling you something, and what does this mean? Is this
Right.
concerning? Is this, some sort of like more rational approach to that. That was a good story about the ground wire.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so just.
Thank you. I'm really in support of a program that would look at reducing the cost of motor vehicle ownership, and particularly looking at prioritizing what is essential in an inspection versus what is not essential. And as Representative Burke mentioned, there was a bill introduced yesterday along those lines. Can you talk a little bit more about this AmeriCorps idea?
Sure.
And would that be training students to do their own inspection to sit? So
Yeah, sure. So actually this was a bill I put in, I don't know, 4 years ago or something like that. My thought was just, we have Vermont Tech, Vermont State University, where we have an automotive department. And we have all these tech centers that are empty throughout the summer. And maybe you could set up shop with helping people with car repairs, working with Community Action or the area agencies on aging for identifying people that could use the help just to keep their car going. And then if it's an AmeriCorps operated program, then you can get money to pay for college, just like we do with ECO, which is through the Agency of Natural Resources. So just trying to come up with ways to help people. Maybe there's some expansion on that with, setting up something that's outside of AmeriCorps, because AmeriCorps may not exist in the future. I'm not sure. But, that idea where we can engage people that are going to our state colleges, and maybe they'll stay here, set up shop and open their own auto shop.
well, and I like the idea of educating young people about how to take care of a car.
Mm-hmm.
As a female, I always feel like every car place I go is trying to rip me off. I don't know what they're talking about. They tell me it's going to be $5,000. And so, I have felt like it would have been really beneficial to learn some things about car ownership. And so, I like that potential educational aspect. So kids can grow up to know a little bit more about these machines that we all rely on.
Yeah, I've owned junk cars my whole life and just watched YouTube videos, trying to figure out how to fix them.
Well, Representative Noyes, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me know if you have any other questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Representative Hooper, thank you. All right. All right. We got a lot. Yeah. Good job.
And that's not.
Uh-oh.
That's last year's number.
It's a dangerous committee. Now, Representative Hooper, good morning. Thank you for coming in a little bit early for us. We're gonna, you're got that joint assembly coming, and I realized how much we pushed it right up against the edge. So please, without further ado, thanks for joining us, and fire away why we would.
Thought I was late. We were fixing elections downstairs. Well, not fixing. Repairing. The bill that I've presented, I think, every year that I've been here. It moves in the direction of trying to recognize the service of veterans as opposed to career military people that we call retirees. There's a bill currently here that has also been here a lot to exempt military pensions from taxation. And it's a $4 million bill, and I think we could use some of that money to recognize people like our former colleague, Chip Troiano, who got up one morning, ended up in Vietnam and spent a couple of years there and came back and then contributed to the growth and vitality of Vermont rather than staying in the military. And we really do very, very little for veterans. So my thought was to identify veterans by giving them a license plate. And that's pretty much the essence of the bill. There are gradations depending upon how many cars you have and things like that. But it basically removes what has become a rather significant cost for families and individuals, particularly if you have 2 or 3 cars. So that's the essence of the bill.
Anybody have any representative Welch?
Anything we can do for veterans, I'm with you. And so if it's
Okay.
giving them a license plate or whatever,
I'll,
or giving them reduced motor vehicle registration for veterans.
yeah.
Yeah.
I often wonder why this bill always ends up in transportation, because it's a money bill and it's a military affairs sort of bill. Historically, transportation has not known what to do with it. But I appreciate your support.
Other questions or comments?
So
Representative.
just trying to get some definition, Representative. This is for a license plate for veterans,
Correct.
and that's it, basically.
Yeah, it's the regular, my interpretation is that it's the regular veterans B
Right.
plate, not Iraq or anything else.
No, that's, I wasn't going there.
And spouse.
And spouse. So
Or
that's
survivor.
that's not available presently. I see veteran.
Oh, they're available, but you have to pay for them.
Okay, so this is a reduction in the cost of that for a
Yes.
veteran. And a vanity plate that we're going to call these are $65, $100.
Is easily.
Yeah.
Easily the 65. I'm not sure about the upper limit.
Okay, all right. No, just that. Thank you for the definition. Thanks.
I was just looking at the bill to see verification on that piece. Representative White?
And I think if I'm reading the bill correctly, that, so it's a vanity plate for veterans at and it's either free or a discounted
Yes.
rate off the registration fee. Okay. Thank you.
And it hinges upon whether you want one or you want several.
Okay.
So you're eligible 100% for one. I believe it's written in 54.
And do you have any idea how many people in the state of Vermont would qualify for that?
We have about 38,000 veterans. How many people want to put, it's sort of like the legislature, how many people want to put that plate on your car and or drive a Tesla? So it's figured at the maximum rate of usage in terms of what it would cost. But it would cost less than the $4 million that the pension thing would cost them.
Other questions or comments for the pieces? Well, Representative, we very much appreciate you coming in. Appreciate you coming in early, presenting your
Thank
bill.
you.
Thank you. Good luck with your elections. I don't think I can say the same. I don't want to use the same phrase.
Well, this is what the Secretary of State's office puts out on their timeline. And just no room in there for anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we do have the joint assembly coming up, so I very much appreciate that they were able to get through with a few minutes to go, so you'll have time to get there and be prepared. We're gonna have some more of these on Friday. I think we have a couple that have moved to Friday, 1 or 2, and we will also discuss things hard in stone. We're not gonna decide what we're taking up, but we will hear from you on your priority. If you have something that you want to at least dig into further, you'll have a chance to share that on Friday. You can also share that with us at any point. And, there's no guarantees and no promises, but at least get a chance to advocate for ones that you think we should take additional testimony on. We are